I say the word nourish to you, right? Nourish, it has like a nice flow to it. It has a nice tone to it, right? And so I would have come to start to do is actually say, oh, this is nourish. Like I was anxious, of course, coming on your program because I thought you were such a prolific speaker. And so I said,
Thank
oh my
you.
God, I'm so nervous coming on Nick's program. But I kept saying, well, it's going to be a really nourishing. I'm going to connect with him, So then I have another story that I bring into it, right? I'm saying, oh my God, it's going to be nourishing. I'm going to enjoy his conversation. It'll be fun. And so now I put that kind of conversation because the conversation on
Yeah.
the other end really wasn't pleasing to me or at all.
It probably wasn't going to make you feel very confident coming on here either.
No, it was making it, I was starting to feel anxious. But the thing is, even with this Nourish app, and the more we start to say the word nourish, we begin to take a pause and we could choose how we want to feel. I mean, not just regarding our feelings,
Love
but our
that.
feelings can bring us to another storyline. I think it's all about the story.
Yeah, that's a good point. The way you sort of, first of all, one of the things you said is I wanted to touch on too. You are right where you're supposed to be. There's a
Right.
lot of times in the last few years where I had to remind myself that very forcefully again, not being too
Mm-hmm.
nice to myself. But I call them side quests. Like your destination is your destination. You may have some side quests, but those are exactly where you're supposed to be. So I love that. I just wanted to harp
Mm-hmm.
back on that. But the word nourish, and what I like reading about it on your app and reading about it on your website and stuff like that is you are defining it in like how people use the word is never really about like themselves outside, maybe like, oh, it's nourishing to have water or something like that. But the way you're kind of doing it and applying it to the way people think about
Mm-hmm.
themselves, I think is really powerful because it's not just stop the negative self-talk, stop the critic. It's actually like these things are going to be very good for my mind and my body and all of that stuff.
Well, actually being nourishing, right? And
Yeah.
then you could apply it to everything. So if we're working out and we are working out because we have to work out and there's no enjoyment in it, what if we took that particular behavior of working out and created almost like a ritual around it and made it so nourishing and bring in, later on during the day also different aspects of that workout so that it integrates in our system and it has like a triple effect on us, or
Mm.
more of an effect on us because oh my God, that was so nourishing for us. And our body starts to like rise up because it's appreciative. And we start to feel like that in our system. But it's not just, a workout. It's about, setting a table for ourselves because we eat on the run and we say, okay, I'm going to nourish myself with this. I don't care if it's something that you say you can't have, like if it's carb or sugar or whatever. But if you just
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, I'm having this because it's nourishing to me right now and it's going to be okay. But then the next time you go in, you look at it and it might not be as nourishing to you at that moment. But the fact that we're starting to bring these questions or feelings into the process or the path or the journey of our day is creating a whole nourishment perspective for ourselves is just it just leads to joyfulness and happiness. And I think we're all like looking for that because
I agree.
it doesn't make us happy to demand of ourselves.
No, it really doesn't. And I hear
Right.
no, it's stressful. And it's one of the things that I work on in therapy is kind of not being so hard on myself. And so like I ate pizza twice this week. Like that's not, I could eat pizza. Pizza is nourishing to me every single day. I could eat it for every single meal, every single
Mhm.
day. Love pizza and burgers. Those are the two things that I could just eat all the time. Right. And so, I was kind of beating myself up on it. I made myself work out twice one day. And it's just like, dude, you just
Yeah, so
enjoyed a
you did
pizza.
that and then you punished yourself.
I punished
Or you're
myself.
saying it's a punishment.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
and I'm conscious of it, and I think a lot of people probably aren't even conscious of sort of that inner dialogue that they're having and the influence it has. So that's why I think it's such an interesting perspective to
Hmm.
speak about these things as nourishing, even if it's just nourishing for that moment or that given
Right.
time in your life.
Right. Yeah. What if you allowed yourself to have that pizza and you said, "Oh my God, this is so nourishing to me. I love it. I love everything about it." And then the next day, maybe something else has come along for you, or
Yeah.
you're open to something else. What else can
Right.
I have that's nourishing?
Right.
I get to have something else
Exactly.
that's nourishing for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wanted to, since I brought up pizza, I wanted to ask you about,
Don't ask me how
um,
to quit eating pizza.
no, no, you know what? I honestly like, I love pizza and I love burgers and I don't care. Like, I'm just going to have them
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's good.
It's just, yeah, it is what
That's
it
good.
is.
Letting yourself. We're letting ourselves off the hook, right?
Exactly.
Right. And
Exactly.
our life has another tone to it.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the other things that I wanted to ask you is I know you work with people, changing their relationship and habits around the food that they eat. What are some of those things that you see with your clients that, um, over all of your experience, that have really been their relationship with food, like what they struggle with? Like, so, I think so many people obviously struggle with food, and a lot of people. I mean, we have a lot of eating disorders. We have
Mhm.
all sorts of things going on in our food relationships. But what are some of those main struggles that you consistently see with people that you work with?
So, beside the food part of it, there is a the things that really get a lot of bang out of the uh, app is what's triggering them. Like, what are the triggers in their life? It's not just food. There's something that happens before the food, because we're kind of doing food as a way to be okay with whatever's happening, and then there's a way to feel safe, right? They want to feel safe, they want to feel okay. So um it's really what triggers people. And
Mm.
there's not that space between something that happened and the conversation that's going on with what's happening with them, and the I'm going to go in and do I'm going to go have something, I'm having something right now, we're not even thinking about it. So um, one of the activations that I actually have is an activation that's called "What's in Your Inner Fridge," and
Ooh.
it's struggling, right, with struggling to understand triggers that happen to us and then transforming our response to it. So one of the responses is definitely, let's go reach for something, let's have some chocolate, let's have something, and then there's no break in between. But what if we looked at that, because a lot of the triggers were created at an early age, they're created as when we were children, and something happened, and thank god thank god we had food, because we were
Mm.
able to look at food as it became a savior for some of us to check out, because being in a situation would have been too much for us. So we were protected on some level, and we were smart enough to have food, is another way to look at it. So
So it was,
we get to be grateful for food being there for us.
that and that's there. Yeah,
What's
that
that? A twist.
it's like a blankie, right? It becomes like a
Right.
blankie when you're a babe. It's funny you say that because I recently, the last maybe year or so, I
Hmm.
realized that when I get super stressed out or depressed,
Hmm.
I go back to macaroni and cheese, franks and
Hmm.
beans, all these foods that I loved and ate as a kid. And it's like
Right.
comforting to, I don't know what is going on up here with this, but like it's comforting to me to like go back to eat these things that I ate as a kid.
Right. It's the best thing
It's
in the world, right?
Yeah, and they are delicious, don't get me wrong, but like it's funny because I do think there's maybe a level of like comfort in one, the convenience, but two, just kind of like thinking back to a time when things were a little bit maybe easier. The taste buds kind of take you back.
Right. But like, how intelligent were we that we figured out, whoa, okay, this is okay. I feel better.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
strange.
I don't care if mom was yelling or dad was yelling or what they were ignoring. I'm going to eat and I'll be okay.
Yeah. Now, do you think the triggered thing's interesting? And I've not thought about relationships with food in this way. I think this is a very interesting conversation to explore a little bit more. And one of the things, another thing I should say that I wanted to ask you is when people are getting triggered, just like you would go, do therapy for other things, like when people do get triggered and they, maybe self-sabotage around food or have that relationship with food, what are some things that you would advise people to think about or maybe slow themselves down before taking a reactive approach?
That's so funny because one of my activations is sabotaging self. Yeah, it really is. And I try to pick themes that were really underlying every single behavior that we had.
Yeah.
And so we're really going, I think that noticing that we are sabotaging ourselves, and that's like kind of a behavior that we're starting to notice, and that there is a solution to shift that within us. And that some of it is the talking, more gently to ourselves and not blaming ourselves and not letting ourselves feel guilty. But in this activation I have, it's really bringing these sabotaging parts, because they're all different parts, to consciousness. And the more we bring them to consciousness, the more we begin to take a pause when we bring that part of us and what the parts are to the surface. Because a lot of behaviors, well, let's face it, most of the behaviors we do that we don't love are, we're looking at the end result, but we can't control those behaviors. But if we are looking at it, looking at where it started, and in my act in the Nourish app, in these activations, what ends up happening is we bring in the inner child, the one that had the first experience of when they started sabotaging themselves. And then we start to bring in an inner guardian, which is a person that's not necessarily your mom. It's not your mom. It's not your dad. It's really a kind of higher being of yourself that's there to listen, to be curious, to see what you want, to see what your needs are. And once you start to feed or feel your own needs, you're able to take a pause and shift the behavior.
Why do you think we are so disconnected? This is more, this isn't like an official question. You can answer it however you want. But like when I hear you talk about that, like that, like common sense, like listen to your intuition, listen to your inner self. Why do you think we're just so disconnected from these types of visualizations for ourselves?
Well, because we chose to do food or drugs or something else instead of listening
The
to
wine I told you I was thinking about having when we were recording this podcast. Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.